.822 on the Talk of the Town, Talk 100.7 FM. Jason Aiello, Rocco LaDuca, Mark Wilbur in studio. 822, and we have about 7 or 8 minutes left here, a little behind with Congresswoman Claudia Tenney. She is joining us here on the Talk of the Town. I had to get the commercial break in, and Ron's sticking with us here, and we'll be quick with Ron. But I think, Ron, we wanted to ask one question, and that was specifically about town halls. So we can ask the Congresswoman about that. We had Mike on, and he mentioned that she has held a few or a number in the southern tier, and Rocco and I were at one last year. But Congresswoman Claudia Tenney on the phone line with us this morning. And Congresswoman, I don't know if you heard any of what's going on here, but specifically, Ron, I think, just wants to know about town halls and if you're planning on having any, and if you'd be receptive to answering some questions, I guess.
Absolutely. I've had a number of town halls, if you want to call them that. This is a big, phony idea that's going on. The Tea Party originated the concept of town halls where you could actually go to an event and talk and have a dialogue with your member of Congress in an open forum. So my opponent has completely bastardized the concept of town halls. They are campaign engineered events. They are produced out of his campaign, coordinated with the Democratic committees wherever he goes. He tends to go to the cities where most of the Democrats are. And he walks into an echo chamber where softball questions are thrown at him. And if anyone there who throws him a question that's not, part of what they want to hear, they get sort of drummed out or told they have to leave or they're not allowed to record. But meanwhile, I've had, over 20 or maybe even more open forums. I call them open forums because I think the concept of what is a real town hall has not been given. And unfortunately, the media, every time he stands in front of a group of Democrats, they call it a town hall. If he gets into a telephone booth, which you don't even have anymore, that would be a town hall. So I think you have to, the concept of what is really a town hall. I've done open public forums where my opponents and all kinds of Democrats and the resist movement have come in, whether it's on opioids, on a number of topics. But what I'm trying to do is meet with my constituents, the people who I really need to help, whether it's farmers, small business owners, veterans. I've toured and gone and met with victims of the opioid epidemic. I do specific meetings with people to find out how we solve the problem. I don't think it's going to be productive for me to stand, and I'll do a number of them, and we'll certainly do open debate, but it's not productive for me to stand at an open protest event, which if you look at what they're doing, the resist movement, these events are protest events. They stand there and scream and yell and put up these placards that are, offensive and vulgar. And I just don't think that is an interest in doing dialogues. I did a number of one-on-one meetings or three-on-one meetings with groups, coffees and other things. So people had a chance to actually sit down and say, here's our problem. How do we solve it? And I think that's what I'm really supposed to do, not to stand up and just be shouted at all the time.
Sure,
and there are other members, there are other members who have used these for fundraising because, some of these people are just out of control at these events. They're screaming at
Claudia.
I just don't know if it's effective.
Claudia, I attended your town hall that you had up in Camden last year, and I would agree to an extent there was the questions were screened. They were pre-written and given you up on stage.
Actually, they were not. They were not pre-screened, and they were not.
That's not democracy.
They were written on cards, and then someone was handed. I wouldn't say that any were eliminated for. I have no reason to believe that, but
none were eliminated. I read every card that came up.
Right. You did, and they were hard. They were hard questions. They were hard questions, right? And you did have, and I would agree, you did have a lot of people in the audience that did not agree with you, and they made that very clear. However, I still felt it was a good discussion for the few hours you were out there. I will say this as well. I did go to Brindisi's town hall last night. And I easily walked in. I just signed my name that I was there. Everyone just signed their names were there, and everyone just sat there and raised their hand to ask questions. So there was no, as far as I was my experience was I could have asked a question if I wanted to, and there was a wide variety of questions that were asked, and I wouldn't say all of them were. You're right to an extent. I think a lot of them were in support of Brindisi and were opposed to you, but there was. One or two questions. I think one, he was asked why, if he's calling for civility, why he would use the term calling people who oppose the hospital idiots in an email. And he was called out on that, and he responded to that. So,
right. Can I say something, too?
Yeah, Ron, yeah.
Well, what I was so impressed with this is that you just walked into a building, he was right there in the middle of everybody. He just stood up in front of everybody, said, "This is what I believe in." Anybody could ask a question. Nothing was censored. Nothing was screened. It wasn't one of those fake telephone things. I actually stood next to someone almost the entire time who I know is an opponent of his. So, it was like such an open forum. It was democracy, and it's actually what you should do. And I want to know, when are you going to come to Utica and do this?
But I've done that. Every single event I've done, all of my open forums.
When?
You just haven't attended. Subscribe to my newsletter and attend. Come to the events, attend them. We do events. A lot of people show up at the events. We do them all the time.
Mm-hmm. Well, do you have one coming up, Claudia? What he's asking was, do you have one scheduled now that he can attend? That's what he wants to know. Is there one scheduled?
We have a number of them scheduled throughout the month of August, the month of September, and the month of October. I urge you to go to my website when we have an event. But let me understand something about the town hall that's also on the radio. We also have thousands more people that can participate in there. And I would be happy to meet with Ron one-on-one, like I have offered one-on-one meetings with everyone who wants to come in. Anyone comes in. I've sat there, I've been screamed at, I've been called vulgarities to my face in front of other people, and that's fine. I'm willing to do that, but I am happy to meet with anyone, anytime, to come and meet and talk to us about the issues, what you really have, and I just think a lot of this is a lot of phoniness. It's a lot of, we've got to, call it a town hall. But honestly, I have people that are friends of mine or people who I know have attended Anthony Brindisi's town halls. And their opinion, and obviously they're not on his team, feel that they're very rigged in his side, and that they're really. Is this the dialogue? Why is sitting in a room with the resistance? By the way, any event I've ever been to, have you seen the number of protesters? There's always the same number of 10 or 11 protesters that are out in front of my office. They have made death threats against me. I've had them for over a year. I'm not worried about me at all. I have got, I am more concerned about the people I'm with, the people young, people that could be concerned about their immigration status, seniors, veterans, people that we're helping in our office. And yet these people are protesting. They're coming into the office. We're letting them come into the office. We're meeting with them. And, some of them are really helpful, and they don't agree, but sometimes they're really helpful. We've taken a lot of their ideas. And what Ron's trying to promote a narrative. He is a Brindisi fan, but he isn't talking about every single piece of legislation I've put out is bipartisan, that I work with my Democratic colleagues. I'm one of the most bipartisan members in our freshman class out of 55 people. I think that says a lot about who I am. So when he claims he's bipartisan, he only works with someone in the majority typically in the House. I'm working with people in the minority. I'm working with Democrats who are in the minority. It's one thing to be in a lopsided majority in the New York State Assembly and then say I'm bipartisan because I'm working with majority members in the Senate. And one thing to be in a majority that I'm in the House and working with minority members in both parties in both houses.
All right, Claudia, honestly, hang on one second.
Let me say one more really important point.
You're not going to be able to because the news is going to cut you off. But just hang on one second. We'll come back. The news was going to jump in here, and I think we'll let Ron go. Ron's going to contact your office, try to sit down with you, and I think you mentioned that you hold a number of events, and if you go to the website, you can see where they're listed. So we'll be back after this on CBS News.
CBS News Update. President Trump's former attorney has released a tape of a 2016 phone conversation about payment for the story of a former Playboy model. The audio given to CNN.
When it comes time to the financing,